The Faithies versus the Furries. It's game on, people. That's right. This topic goes deeper and darker than you could possibly imagine, but make sure you watch to the end of this video to find an amazing way, a positive way, by the power of Jesus, we could turn this whole puppy around. But before we do that, please hit that subscribe button. We need your subscription here. I mean, we're doing this live, guys. We do this live every single time. Every video is live here, and it takes a lot to do that. So appreciate your support. Just hit that subscribe button. That's all it takes. But can you believe it? There's been a protest for the furries. And guys, this goes a lot deeper what's happening in the schools here with the kids and these furries. And if you could give me a thumbs up out there and just make sure you can hear me okay as we're live. I always want to make sure you can hear me all right. But yeah, there's been a protest. Finally, people are standing up, they're kicking back and saying no more of this ridiculous nonsense. But basically, this furry thing has come to a furious head. There's been a protest in Utah of middle school students protesting these furries, and they're saying that they're biting them, that they're barking at them, that they're licking them, that they're making them... I don't know, man. I mean, whatever an animal might do to you, that's what they're doing to these poor kids. And they actually walked out of the school, and there's even a video that talks about it. Now, in response to this, they've actually received some threats that there's going to be some other activity happening that you can see on the screen there that I won't name for obvious reasons. But yeah, so that's something to consider too. You don't want to mess around with people who are trying to get an education in school. These kids, people are starting to fight back. They're pretty sick of the nonsense. Then we've got some furry hackers that are attacking some media outlets at the same time. It says 9 questions about furries you were embarrassed to ask. Should I be the one embarrassed? I don't think so. I think the embarrassment is surely should be on the other foot. But here's the video if you want to go check it out. It's out there. I won't play it for you right now. But basically, it's pretty honest. You know, these kids, I can't see any way they were put up to this. It's pretty obvious that they are genuine. And they're basically saying, hey, we're tired of this nonsense. These furries keep messing with our groove. Now, what's a furry, okay? A furry is something that looks like this. Basically, somebody wearing an animal costume and going to school that way, but not just dressing up, but actually behaving like an animal. I mean, so far as they're putting litter boxes in the bathrooms for these kids, and the school is sponsoring it. The school is saying, yeah, that's fine. We love these furries. Let's do more of this. So it's a ridiculous religious cult, and it must be put to a stop. Now, where did this come from, this furry fandom? Now, you know, as a parent, you know, I'm a parent. I've got kids myself who, you know, when they're young, they like to dress up as a princess or as a superhero or something like that. And so it could be, you know, very easy to just write this off and say, oh, come on. It's like Tony the Tiger, you know. They're just getting it from their breakfast cereal. It's not that big of a deal. But, you know, that Tony the Tiger on your breakfast cereal actually goes a lot deeper, as we will see as well. You know, maybe it's a Comic-Con thing. You know, they're just dressing up like their favorite hero. You know, they're just having some fun. And I know as a kid, you know, I dressed up as Superman. There were times I grabbed, you know, the top of a garbage can lid and pretended I was Captain America as I threw it across, you know, to get one of my friends. And we would just have some fun together, pretending to be heroes and villains and so forth. And obviously, we all grew out of that. At least I think we all did. I'm still a kid at heart, but you know, we obviously understood we were just having some fun and goofing around. But this furry business, this goes deeper than the kids, guys. This is being pushed by another agenda, as we shall see, and it goes much, much deeper. In fact, in Romans 1, it talks about this. It says, although they claim to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. Whoa, that sounds just like the furries to me. That's right in Romans 1. Wow, and it's even talking about mortal man, which could even, I suppose, include those superheroes as well. But that's very interesting to think about. So this is already in the Bible and something that God has been dealing with throughout history. It's called anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism, I know it's quite a mouthful there, but basically that means when you attribute any human traits to something that's not human. So like sometimes it could be something like the wind, like you picture this guy, you know, he's fighting against the wind, right? And, you know, so it could be something as simple as that, or it could be something a little bit more complex, you know, like an animal. And so, you know, you have a lot of stories of quote unquote furries or different creatures For example, like Peter Rabbit, and or the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland and those kinds of things. So it's a part of our culture. In fact it's so prevalent we don't even realize it, right? It's so there that you almost don't even know what's happening. But the furries have their own Wikipedia. It's called WikiFur. Yeah, I know. And they talk about the Egyptian gods, and now we start to see, this goes a little bit deeper than just Tony the Tiger on my cereal box. Now we're talking about worshiping false gods. And if you think about it, all the Egyptian gods, or at least most of them, were based on different animals, like the jackal, the cat, the goose, the cow, the falcon, the snake, the alligator, and on, the cobra, so there were a lot of different animals associated there. And the Greek gods have their own share as well, with the minotaurs, the centaurs, the satyrs. Those are the guys who have maybe they have a head of a cow, but the arms of a human, and things like that, or the torso of a man, but the body of a horse, and things like that, right? So, fawns and so forth. Well, it does say in Ecclesiastes, what has been will be again, and what has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. And I want to give a shout out to Michelle and Oriana. They brought this whole furry thing to my attention. Oriana really helped me do a lot of great research today, so thank you so much to them. But what has been done, will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. So, when you look in the old days and you think, wow, they used to worship false gods with heads of animals? How weird. How crazy. Who would do that? And yet we see it happening again, don't we? Here we go, the Egyptian gods right here, some images of them. And boy, looks a lot like this furry business. Well, God wasn't too happy with that, and that's why they were worshiping a golden calf there in the book of Exodus when they came out of Egypt, right, from those Egyptian gods. And so God wasn't too happy, and Moses even threw down the 10 Commandments. He was so upset, and he had to write them all over again. But this was going on even in the cultures when they went into the promised land. They had to drive out the Canaanites and all the ites, and they were worshiping these anthropomorphic gods, these humanic gods that had animal attributes and animal heads and so forth. Well, Satan isn't too far from that either. If you think of most depictions of Satan, he usually has horns and a tail, right? So he too has that anthropomorphic quality. So this runs pretty deep, guys. And, in the Bible, it even describes Satan as an animal. It says that great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. Now we know this from the Garden of Eden, right? He was a serpent at that point when he tempted Eve, and that goes all the way through to the last book of the Bible. From Genesis to Revelation, he's depicted as this serpent or dragon creature, and it says that's the devil, that's Satan. So you wonder, how deep does this animal thing really go? When we look at the animals and you kind of think, wow, why did God make that animal? Why did he make that creature? Is there more to it than what we understand? Well, that usually always the answer is yes, right? As above, so below. So what's going on with these animals? Are these animals connected to spirit beings or celestial beings in some way? It's something for us to consider. There's a depiction of Satan as that serpent, that ancient serpent. So when we think of these Egyptian gods, boy, you kind of wonder, where did they get it from? And what is this all really coming from, all this animalistic connections? But boy, as I look at these, they almost look like superheroes, right? That's kind of what comes to mind. They kind of look like they're, these are the Egyptian gods of the old, and kind of like the gods that people worship today, like the Black Panther. I mean, that almost looks like the Black Panther. You got an alligator man there, and you got, some bird man and so forth. Very intriguing. Kind of makes me think like we have never really left that, have we? We've got a guy who is a Wolverine, right? Or a Batman, or a Batman and a Robin, or a Catwoman and a Penguin, or a Spider-Man, right? And on it goes. But what's interesting is when we get into the schools, right? And that's what's happening now. And we saw that with Teen Wolf. Michael J. Fox famously played the Teen Wolf back in the day, and made it look so fun to be a Teen Wolf in school. Now, of course, he wasn't the first to do it. That came out of the 50s, right? They were doing that. But he's rocking on the top of a bus and making anthropomorphic furriness look cool, right? So this was already kind of programmed into the minds, but it didn't start in high school, right? It started when they were just little wee ones, right? With anthropomorphic mice and squirrels and dogs and ducks. And boy, oh boy, it really is ingrained in us in our culture. Well, it's not just from the superhero standpoint. There's also a dark side to this whole animal thing. And we see that also on this Wiki Fur page, talking about Animal Farm, the famous book by George Orwell, the same guy who brought you 1984, that famous book that we're living through right now, basically. And so Animal Farm was all about the animals taking over the farm. And all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, right? They famously say in that movie as the pigs take over. But there's definitely a dark side to this animal connection, werewolves. Ever since movies were made, they've been doing werewolf movies of a man turning into a beast, right? I remember the movie Cat People came out in the 80s, and a show called Manimal, where you could change into all kinds of animals. Then there's Donnie Darko, right? He literally hangs out with a furry through most of the movie. And it's a dark, malevolent furry, this rabbit of a character that he talks to throughout most of the movie. It's a furry. Wow. And then we've got movies like The Purge, right, with the different things they wear. You're Next, another horror movie where they're wearing animal costumes. And there's other movies like that. This famous movie, or maybe not so famous, but this movie deals with what's really going on with the cabal and so forth. And it centers around a guy who wears this mask. Lots of malevolent animal masks are out there for people to don. You've got DJs putting it in their music videos, right? Famously, this Animals video, and they're being malevolent. They have guns and different things in their hands in the video. And then you've got guys like Bad Bunny, right? Another famous rapper out there. Bad, not Good Bunny, but Bad Bunny. So there's a malevolent side to all this animal stuff. We're reminded also of the Furies. The Furies were those in hell in Greek mythology who would come out of the abyss, so to speak, to wreak vengeance on mankind. And, there's a famous phrase that says, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. You always thought that just meant anger, but it's actually referring to the Furies who were in hell, right? Who came out of hell and brought about that wrath. There's even a show called The Furies that came out this year that you could see on Netflix. So, wow, something to consider here. Now, as we dig into the scriptures, interesting, we see a lot of references like this to these animal, human-like, anthropomorphic figures, okay? So here in Revelation, we see when he opened the abyss, the smoke rose from it. Out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. Their faces resembled human faces. So, wow, that sounds right out of Greek mythology or something. They look like horses, but their faces resemble humans. Their hair was like woman's hair. Their teeth were like lion's teeth. The sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses. They had tails and stings like scorpions. I mean, they got a bit of every kind of creature here. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek Apollyon. Now, when they have finished their testimony, the beast... and then we got a beast in Revelation 2, actually a couple beasts, that comes up from the abyss, will attack them and overpower them and kill them. Now that's talking about the two witnesses, and the beast comes out of the abyss, kind of like the Furies once did as well. And then we see another scripture here in Revelation 13. It says, I saw a beast coming out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads with the crowns on his horns, and on each it had a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. Wow, here we got another furry. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. Here in Daniel, it says 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a man, anthropomorphic, and the heart of a man was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised on one of its sides. It had ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat your fill of flesh. After that, I looked, there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard. On its back had 4 wings like that of a bird. This beast had 4 heads. It was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left from all the former beasts. It had 10 horns. Wow, it sounds just like what we saw in Revelation. But what's interesting about this is it's not limited to malevolent creatures. It also applies to Christ. and to God. It's very intriguing, this relationship with animals and this anthropomorphic qualities. Okay, so here in Revelation 4, it says, in the center around the throne were 4 living creatures, and they were covered with eyes in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. And then we see the Lamb. Now, Jesus, both on earth and in heaven, was referred to as a lamb, described as a lamb. Not like a man that looked like a lamb, but like as a lamb, as an actual lamb. And so that's very intriguing as well. It says, I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. He had 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out to all the earth. He came and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. So you've got the Father on the throne, you've got this lamb. Is he taking it with his mouth? Because a lamb can't just grab something with his hand. Or is he anthropomorphic? And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of... Okay, so there's creatures, these 4 living creatures that look like a lion, a bear, what we just saw in the last scripture there, an ox, sorry, I'm confusing with the other one, but a lion, an ox, a man, and an eagle, right? Well, how do they hold the harp and play it? Right? And how do they hold these bowls? Are they anthropomorphic? Which are the prayers of the saints? It's very, very intriguing, this whole relationship, and how ancient does all this really go. But here's the upside, guys. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good, right? So you've got these furries that are trying to take over the school, which really it's probably an agenda that's being pushed, from another group, a hidden group, right? And the kids are just having fun, but they're trying to push something a little darker here. But it says, don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So let me introduce to you the Faithies. Dun, 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 dun. That's right, the Faithies coming to a school near you. Beat them at their own game, I always say. So if you can't beat them, join them, right? They want to throw you on your head and say, what are we going to do about these furries in school? Well, we got to let them be themselves. Got to let them identify. Well, guess what? I identify as a Faithie. Yeah, that's right. I like to dress in first century garb. Sometimes I carry the 10 Commandments or the Bible. I like to preach the word 24 hours a day. And I like to, help people come to Christ. It's my identity. You can't say, oh, no, well, that's religion. Oh, no. This is religion. This furry thing, that's a cult. That's a religion. So either that's a religion, right? And then we got to let all religions, or it's an identity and we got to let all identities. Either way, we win, right? Either way, we can say, listen, I identify as a Faithie. That's how I identify. My pronouns are child of God, disciple of Christ, and more than a conqueror. How about that? And are these kids precious, right? Wouldn't it be great to see a bunch of kids going to school as Faithies, right? Now, I know this may be a little over the top because you're actually wearing, first century garb and so forth, but there's other ways we can be Faithies beyond this. Perhaps we could use flair, as famously showed in this movie, like buttons. What if you covered all your clothes with Jesus buttons, or t-shirts, right? Are always a great way. Wearing some Jesus garb, right? So there's lots of different ways we can do it, but why not be Faithies in school? No one can stop you because it's what you identify as. You see, you identify as a Faithie. See, once you speak their language, you got to get on their psychotic level and say, oh, okay, you want to be a Faithie? You want to be a furry? Okay, well, I'm going to be a Faithie, and I'm going to preach the word to you all day long and help you come to Christ. How does that sound? In Revelation 6, as we wrap this up, it says, I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power of a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Are the furries coming back? I mean, is that what we're talking about here? Is that the wild beasts that are going to be coming back? I mean, we certainly see a lot of creatures coming out of the abyss. There's certainly a lot of creature connection with evil here. What is really going on with these wild beasts, I wonder? And lastly, it says, on that same day, the Lord told Moses, go up into the Abiram range to Mount Nebo in Moab and view Canaan, the land I'm giving the Israelites as their own possession. Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo. There the Lord showed him the whole land. Then the Lord said to him, this is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants. Do you know that the name of this school that these kids were a part of is Mount Nebo? Did you know that? So that was the school that these kids were all a part of, right? It was the Mount Nebo school, and in Utah. And so is God giving us a sign for us to consider here that the promised land is right on the edge. Something to think about, guys. Well, look, guys, we need your support. We are a ministry, and in addition to these videos, we have a 24/7 ministry at McKayoMinistries.com. So we hope you will support us through the links in the description and join us at that ministry. Just come to McKayoMinistries.com. It's free. You can come join us there, and we'd love to see you. Guys, let's be looking up. Jesus is coming back, and there's lots of ways we can turn it all on its head when it comes to the devil. So make sure you're preaching the word boldly as we should, guys. Wishing you all the best and all the blessed. Maranatha and love, love, love.